So, next up, we have a fireside chat. We haven't had those today. And we're going to get a special person, which Mihir Shah, CEO of Tapjoy, and I'm glad to say that they are also one of our sponsors here, will be interviewed by Alex Wilhelm, business and political editor of The Next Web. Please join me in welcoming Mihir Shah and Alex Wilhelm.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All yours. All right, are we on?
We are on.
Well, hello.
Although the timer has not started.
Yes, we should probably get that kicked off. People in the back, we need our timer, if possible. We'll give them a second. First of all, thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thanks for having me.
I think the app market right now, especially in the mobile sense, is exceptionally interesting, and the market dynamics behind it couldn't be more relevant as we see companies like Facebook trying to monetize in a mobile setting and how that impacts their valuation and so forth. But before we get into all these issues and different topics, I would like to have you start by just introducing what you do at Tapjoy, what Tapjoy does, just quickly so we kind of have a context for your answers.
Sure. So Tapjoy is a global app platform that drives distribution and revenues for app developers worldwide. We serve about 73,000 developers, and we serve about 100 million unique active users every month globally.
And if I'm not mistaken, Tapjoy also invests directly into some app development in certain markets.
Sure.
What's the mentality behind that, and where exactly do you do that, and how?
Well look, this is an entrepreneurial time in what is arguably the most exciting media market in the last 2 decades. And it is certainly being driven by consumer, but it needs to be continually driven by entrepreneurs building great content, great services, great apps, and we're proud to be a part of helping some of those realize their dreams.
Most certainly. And could you give us an example of like how much money you would invest and the criteria by which you do make these decisions?
Well, I've made this very bad joke before. We had a $5 million US fund, of which we spent $8 million. And so we have decided that we are horrible venture capitalists. And now we have set up a $5 million Asian developer fund. And we are allocating that now. I think we've invested in about 5 to 10 Chinese and Korean firms.
Okay. That leads me to my first question or topic that I want to break into. You have, I think, a unique perspective on the app market because you work with so many developers, so many unique users, so many different countries. If you were to score the health of the app market right now, what would you say? Are we still growing? Is it still as entrepreneurial as it was 2 years ago? Thinking through the saga of the iPhone and how that changed third-party development, where do we stand right now?
Since the Giants are in postseason play, we'll do a baseball. We're in the first inning.
Okay.
It is very early. There's going to be a lot of noise in early markets. We see it time and time again. We are, gaming moved first. Social networking moved first in terms of entering the mobile app space and really embraced iOS, Android, and now Windows Phone. We have not even seen the remarkable services that are coming down the pipe in terms of apps. I mean, let's remember, apps are nothing more than content and services packaged for mobile and eventually connected TV usage. So imagine the amount of utility apps, the amount of communication apps, the amount of media apps where you can, as a consumer, consume Flipboard, right?
Right.
So look, we are just getting started. There is going to be some ups and downs, but this is all trending up and to the right.
All right, now if we're in the first inning, let's go ahead and look a few hours later in the game. What specific trends do you kind of see coming to the forefront next? If games and social networking went first, you mentioned connected TV apps, what should people have their eye out for in terms of the next wave of mobile app development, and what genres would those apps fall into?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. So gaming will continue to grow globally, and we continue to be very excited about gaming. I think, in addition to the social media apps, we are going to see somewhat of a revolution in communication apps. Really interesting folks like Pinger have been doing this for a while with voice and texting over IP. We're going to start seeing that more and more with video. We're going to start seeing that with collaboration tools. We are going to see a wealth of media come in, from print media to film, TV, radio. That category is very early because the first guys that came out, it was all subscription. And when you're subscription, you artificially, in my opinion, hold down your user counts because not everybody wants to pay $20 a month for something. We're going to see a pivot in media where consumers are going to be allowed to do what they want to do, which is buy the pieces of content that they want, consume those without having to take the whole thing. How many of us read the entire newspaper?
Only when I'm stuck in a hotel room.
Very few of us, yeah.
So you're advocating micropayments, essentially. The ability
Yes.
to go out and seek specific pieces of content, pay a minor fee for them, as opposed to having a recurring subscription to the Times or the Journal or the USA Today.
Absolutely. Gaming showed us that a microtransaction freemium model significantly drives adoption and significantly drives revenue per user. Now, and I hate the word gamification.
Everyone does. It's a miserable word.
I also hate the word monetization, by the way.
Fair enough.
We can go through, maybe somebody can shout out a word, I'll tell you if I like it or not.
We can make it bingo. I hate that word. I hate you.
Right?
Yeah.
But gamification of other mass market, consumer market verticals is coming in freemium.
So gamification of media, in a sense. So I'm going to be reading the Times. I'm going to get a pop-up. It's going to be like a little balloon, like you won 5 reads. Is that where we're going? Will it be that tacky, or will it be more sophisticated?
Oh, I don't think it's tacky at all. I think how it gets implemented in terms of how many rewards points you have, or is it one commercial equals one article? I don't know. Again,
Right.
It's the first inning. It'll be done in a very high quality way that respects the consumer. But those markets are larger than gaming, arguably are more ubiquitous globally. Everybody consumes news information. Everybody consumes affinity stripes of media content, whether you're a cigar aficionado or you're a runner's world.
Right.
Right? That's coming. Right?
This just feels to me like a larger screen experience. When we talk about this sort of news consumption, for example, or media consumption, it feels more like we're talking about an iPad than an iPhone. I feel like we're talking about a larger screen size. Is that where we're going?
Yes and no, right? iPad, the form factor of an iPad and similar tablets obviously drives a more engaged experience. It's just bigger, right?
Right.
I think we are going to see a new wave of UX around the phones that are going to make accessing and consuming content on phones even easier. Again, we are so early in this market. I mean, guys like Path, and I know they're a bit different, have just done such a phenomenal job on UX and making what could have been a very complex interaction into something very clean, simple, and wonderful. And there's a number of other examples, but that's one.
Well, we're talking about apps we've all heard of and may use. Let's talk about the OMG Pop acquisition. When Zynga picked them up for, I think it was about $200 million, and they've written off, I think, $100 million of that acquisition cost on their balance sheet. Now, just for context, this is a company that had a very popular app. It's called Draw Something or Draw Anything. It became a global hit. They were picked up by Zynga, and then the app lost its user base.
Yeah.
So this raises a lot of issues. How do you value an application? How do you value a mobile app? What's the life expectancy of the average user for an application? I mean, these are questions that drive millions of dollars in market value. I don't think there's things we've figured out yet.
Well, first off, it's almost an impossible question to answer because it's broad, and I know what you're asking,
right.
and I respect the question, and I'm not going to try to totally duck it. So look, I personally believe that valuations in early markets get too high, and then they get too low to correct, as opposed to a median curve that goes right up, right between the two. There's too much sine curving going on in early markets, and we all know it's going to happen, yet we let it happen every time. It's like everybody's got to have the new hot piece of content.
Right.
And I think that's what we're seeing. OMG Pop is a phenomenal team. I mean, we know that Tapjoy knows them very well. They have a lot of bullets still left. They can create a franchise around Draw Something, but that takes time. And so, again, getting too high about an individual title or too low when it doesn't do everything you want it to do in the first couple of quarters. I just, let's assess it in a year. Now, the fact that Zynga had to write it down, I'm not an accountant. That doesn't necessarily say anything about long-term business value.
It wasn't an embarrassing
that
point,
team
though.
can create by building phenomenal content for customers.
But you mentioned how they could turn it into a franchise and extend the Draw Something brand and an application into more stuff. Are you kind of advocating a dynastic platform such as Angry Birds that consistently reinvents itself in minor ways to keep itself alive? Is that where this might go?
Well, absolutely. Now, there'll be categories, but a large part of the market, and again, all you have to do is go and look at PC video multiplayer gaming or console gaming. Franchises work. Madden works, right?
FIFA works.
It's in the game works. EA is good at this, right? And they will continue to be good at this. Zynga with the Friends franchise, guys, no matter what we want to say about them on mobile, they have a huge amount of very engaged daily active users. They are growing those on mobile, and that franchise works. And they may be able to do the same thing with Draw Something. But again, content in and of itself in a game setting or a movie, meaning consumable content, has a half-life. It's a hit business. It's why we have movie production studios that make bets on green-lighting certain movies and not others because they're trying to get a better hit rate than not. The gaming business is no real different. And so you need a portfolio, you need a franchise to cover some of your downside.
Now, while we're talking about EA, there's lawsuits going back and forth between EA and Zynga over intellectual property theft, or supposed intellectual property theft. And as we've talked about Zynga's various games that people say are copied in some cases, what's your take on that? Who's in the right, and where will the lawsuit kind of shake down?
So I'm going to completely take the fifth on that one. I'm
100%.
not going to wade into the legal issues between EA and Zynga. They're both fantastic companies. I'm sure they'll work it out.
Okay, well, we'll leave that one to the audience then.
Yeah.
We talked about monetization on a more long-term basis, and that's something that the trends will take care of that. Companies like Facebook right now are struggling to monetize their mobile applications, and this is becoming somewhat of a media narrative. How do large social networks monetize mobile users in ways that will drive up their ARPU on their DAUs? So where do you see Facebook taking this, and how effective will their short-term efforts be?
Oh gosh, that's a great question, and it's a question we ask ourselves. Only Facebook really knows. But here's what I would suggest: is Facebook is going to improve revenue on mobile because they are some of the smartest guys I've ever worked with, and it's a phenomenal team with a very, very healthy balance sheet. And a ton of users. So they will make good progress to the benefit of all of our consumers and the developer community. Here's the question that I have about Facebook. Fundamentally, Facebook is about connecting people. It's about sharing little moments in life, staying connected to those that you can't necessarily sit next to at work or be at the dinner table at night, every night. Does that canvas support app distribution? Meaning, is app distribution part of the narrative of why I use Facebook? And I would suggest that Facebook was very successful in its news feed on PC because you were getting lots of news feeds coming in. It became part of your connection narrative, right?
Right.
I can personally tell you on my mobile phone, if I start getting 1 out of every 3 updates is a come play Xville.
Right.
This is a personal device, and I use this device different than I use my PC. Right?
Very much so.
PC, I browse, I search. On mobile and tablet, I'm in a task. I do, right? And the friction associated with clicking on a Facebook feed, downloading the app, coming back, realizing it's not for you, is very, very different than a Google search on web, where you just go somewhere. If it's not right, you just go right back.
Right.
Or a feed coming in through Facebook PC when you're on your desktop. So I gave a very political answer to what I think about, will consumers really embrace that? And will the balance between this personal device and the fact that I don't want a lot of stuff on it unless I've asked for it.
Right.
Right?
It's a permissions question.
And how many Facebook customers asked to get game feeds from their friends to be able to use that again, as opposed to just got them. And so we'll see. I just don't know if the platform's set up for this kind of thing long term.
We're low on time. I want to get to this last point. I want to talk about Windows Phone. This has been an effort by Microsoft that's been going on for, I think, a little over 2 years now publicly. The phones have been generally lauded as good, but the market share has been really, really lackluster thus far for the efforts. And Microsoft is cognizant of this problem. But as someone who deals with the other two platforms that matter, iOS and Android, how do you view Windows Phone, and how do you see it performing?
Well, long term, you've got to be bullish on Microsoft. I think they've done a great job with the user interface. I think they've probably got a couple of cycles to go before it's fully buttoned up. So we are long term bullish on Microsoft. Now, again, in the interest of just having a candid conversation here, where Apple hugely won was a really tightly, phenomenally put together vertical stack. The whole thing just works.
Yeah.
And Apple had its various teams working together very well to get that done. Android took a different approach. You got Andy, who is ridiculously sharp with an OS that he licenses, right? And then he lets the other value stacks come in from others. Now, the Motorola may change that a bit, but that's today. Microsoft wants to be vertically integrated, but they have such powerful fiefdoms internally that partners like us and developer partners, well, are you talking to the Xbox team or the phone team? And, can everybody put their guns down, please?
Yes.
Because we're just trying to make this thing work.
I deal with that on a daily basis working with that company.
So, look, I hope they understand that the community, global community, of app developers and app platforms is accretive to the Windows Phone, and we can really help with content aggregation and then consumer penetration.
All right, we're out of time. Just one quick thing.
That was 20 minutes?
I think it was 15. We got cut off 5 minutes early.
Oh, yeah?
Windows Phone, iOS, Android. Are those three platforms we're going to see moving forward as the leaders? Is something going to come up, or is that kind of the trifecta that's going to drive the mobile world for the next 5 years?
Yeah, but one caveat, and that is, I think in Asia we may see forked Android experiences. And what that means is you take the open code base and you basically create your own app store experience for consumers. And it's already, SK Planet has done a phenomenal job. In Korea, they have, I think, more than 50% of the market. A number of Android app stores in China. And A, it's because Android's more open, not totally open, but more open. And B, because these companies are identifying local needs that are unique, and that they can uniquely address. Because at the end of the day, the most important constituent here is the consumer. So if Korean firms do a better job delivering a localized app experience to the South Korean users, God bless them.
I mean, go for it.
Go for it.
They will win. We are out of time.
Great.
We should go.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
All right.